And I'm going to turn over our announcement to our attorney, Attorney Tom York.
Good morning. I want to thank all of you for coming here today to help bring attention to this very important matter. A matter that is not an exaggeration to say is life and death to the most vulnerable citizens in our society. The developmentally disabled, or sometimes referred to as the intellectually disabled, in our state centers. Those are the people that would need the protection. In particular, we're talking today about Polk Center and Whitehaven Center. The Commonwealth has announced the closure of Polk Center and Whitehaven Center. The residents are to be moved to, quote, the community, unquote. That has different meaning to different people, but the fact of the matter is that creates major difficulty for all these residents. The rush to move all these residents of Polk and Whitehaven is based upon a political agenda and not on sound, unbiased, accepted professional standards. This political agenda of the Commonwealth is based upon a politically correct philosophy that defies the facts. This politically correct goal of the Commonwealth is without regard to the needs, desires, health and safety, and well-being of the individuals residing at Polk and Whitehaven, who will suffer very real harm as a result of this. These individuals who form our class of plaintiffs are in need of intensive and extensive and constant care. They are not the low-care individuals that sometimes do well out in the community. These are people who cannot do many basic everyday tasks without assistance. These are people who need full-time nursing care, medical procedures every few hours sometimes. These are people who need one-to-one constant supervision to prevent aggression or self-injurious behavior. Some even require 2 or 3 staff be present or be available to help in case they need to de-escalate instances of acting out. Essentially, we are dealing with the most vulnerable of the vulnerable. There's a reason they are among the few hundred still remaining in Pennsylvania's developmental centers. It's because they are the most difficult to move. They're the most difficult to accommodate with the services and the attention that they need. Moving these persons out to group homes or other community in quotes again, residences will harm them psychologically, emotionally, medically, and physically. Even worse, for some, this hurry to close all developmental centers is in effect a death sentence. Some will face a much earlier mortality, as has happened in other states pursuing this misguided political correctness. I represent a number of states. My practice is essentially nationwide, more focused on the East Coast, and I've done work in a number of states, and I can tell you I've seen it happen in other states. Others will suffer more abuse and injuries in the community than what they would if they stayed in these facilities, these centers that provide such excellent care. And let me go off script here for a second. I saw somebody with a Polk Center Strong shirt the other day, and let me just shout out to them and the people that they were here today. Also to the Whitehaven people, who I assume that maybe they're employees or state workers who work there. And we wouldn't even be here today arguing that people should remain there if it wasn't for the excellent work that they've done. These people are outstanding individuals. You can't meet finer people. Some of them have even made financial sacrifices to care for these individuals that they love and consider family members. And I just can't speak highly enough of the people that work at Polk Center and at Whitehaven Center. Others still, if they're moved, will lose their hard-fought everyday living skills and all their rehabilitation progress that they've made over the years, that they've paid a high cost for to get from the good care that they received at Polk and at Whitehaven. And remember, this is all being done without the consent of the parents, families, guardians, and other loved ones who know these most vulnerable people the best. Those family members and guardians who should be the center of any decision on what is best for their loved ones, instead are relegated to mere spectators, spectators being asked to merely witness the demise of their loved ones. How so very cruel? Since when does our society not value the opinions of parents, family, and legal guardians? Since when does our great society, based on freedom and liberty, allow the state to substitute its judgment for that of our parents and guardians? Since when do we ask our parents, families, and guardians to watch helplessly while their children and loved ones wither and die? The Commonwealth claims that it is integrating in quotes again, these residents into the community, but that is not true in the actual result. Apparently, according to the Commonwealth, if you plop just somebody down in, who's developmentally disabled in a small house in a, quote, normal, unquote, neighborhood, you have integrated them. This, in reality, is absurd and very dangerous. Being in a small home with minimal staff, limited program activities, and little oversight can be very isolating and very lonely. It can become a prison, although it looks like a home. The most integrated setting to meet the needs of the plaintiffs who are residing now at Polk and at Whitehaven, is where they reside now. These are large campuses with many resources and many activities, including outings to the community. They are more community integrated at these facilities than what they would be being alone in some small home. I'll give you an example that I'm sorry to give some of my own personal experience, but I tried a case in Arkansas where the U.S. Department of Justice was trying to close a facility for the developmentally disabled. I've also defended other facilities around the country, including Harrisburg. I saw the name here, who's I hold very dear, and we were successful in protecting them years ago back in the 90s. But we were finishing up a 6-week trial. Tried living in Little Rock for 6 weeks, but in a hotel. But we thought we had the judge on our side pretty much. We had he'd from all the expert witnesses. We had psychologists, medical doctors, physical therapists, occupational therapists, on down the line, neurologists. We thought we had won him over. We thought he was not going to order the closure of this facility, and he shouldn't. But we still had our doubts. So we said, let's have the judge, who's already seen the facility. He's already been to it was Conway Human Development Center. Let's go out to this facility. Go out to see some of the group home settings, the settings in the, quote, community, unquote. And let's see what happens. And we were so confident of our position, we let the U.S. Department of Justice, our rivals, choose those community homes that they wanted to take the judge to see. Well, we went out to these community homes, and you could just see it on the judge's face. In contrast to the facility, Conway Human Development Center, where they had an indoor pool, Olympic size in fact, a chapel, a gym with exercise equipment, a canteen, a cafeteria, a theater, a rec room with games, a snoozling room. Those of you who work in this field know what a snoozling room is, but it's a sensory room where they give you all the sensory stimulation of different lights and devices, and a recreation area outside, had many friends. They had dances organized, festivals, parties, excursions out into the so-called community. They'd go on shopping trips. No, we went to this home, and this gentleman was sitting there all alone. In fact, when we arrived at one of them, there wasn't even a staff member there. Where was he? Which we found most of the staff members tend to be less responsible and less knowledgeable and less caring when in the community than what they are at our fine facilities like Polk and Whitehaven. And then we found out, the judge talked to this person and found out they hadn't been out of the home for days. They sat and languished in this home, but they were integrated. This is the integration that was being proposed by the U.S. Department of Justice. This is the integration that was being proposed by our secretary here and by the governor here in this state. They're not integrated. They are left to languish in their homes. We knew at that point we had won the case just by the look of the judge's face. We didn't find out for sure until weeks later when we got the decision, but I knew that the judge understood that indeed these people were not going to be integrated by forcing them all out of a nice living setting that some people want to call, quote, an institution, unquote, but is far more integrated and more caring of these people than many of these private settings out there. We normally admire people who are determined and focused on their goal. You have all heard the phrase, and this was referring to you have to admire them a little bit in the state here, that they're going to keep pushing this. You hear the phrase, I'm going to get this done even if it kills me. Even if it kills me. You've heard that phrase, haven't you? However, when people become misguided and mistaken and zealous for our cause, as they are here, and they push on without any risk to themselves, this all becomes obstinance and oppression. I'm afraid that the state is now saying to parents and families and guardians in this state, even though I know they don't intend to really harm them, but what they're essentially saying by saying, we're not going to turn back, we're not going to reconsider, we are going to do this even if it kills you. And that's what they're saying. Think about it. Even if it kills you, we're going to do this. We're going to carry this out because that's what political correctness has told us to do. So we are filing a suit this week to support the rights of those disabled persons at Polk and Whitehaven who need and deserve our protection and so desperately need it. Thank you.
Thank you.